Hey guys, it's Chris Truitt from the Reluctant Somm. We're really excited about season 3. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Just wanted to give another little note that if you like what we're doing and you want to show us some support, reviews, likes, shares, word of mouth, all of these things really help us. We'll also be creating a newsletter this year that focuses on some of our favorite restaurants, favorite wine lists, favorite places to eat, as well as just some really cool people in the industry, as well as some other insights into what's going on in our field of profession. I also wanted to let you know that on that is where we'll be updating everybody on all of our pop-ups and any collaboration events or anything that we're doing. So if you want to keep track of us, that's the best way. Also, if you're not already following us on Instagram, you can follow us at Reluctant Somm on Instagram and keep up with us. Give us likes. Cheers. Cheers, Brooke. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Excited to have you here. Excited to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you from a lot of different people in the industry, especially in San Francisco.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm incredibly appreciative of your time. I know you're very busy. You have plenty of stuff on your plate. You know, you have the job that you do is multifaceted. So I really appreciate your time. And you know, you don't live in San Francisco. So geographically, there's a little bit of a drive after this, which I also greatly appreciate your flexibility. So
totally fine with a drive.
Yeah.
You will learn about that in just a minute.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So the way that we always start is to kind of, you know, introduce yourself, give your background, like where you're from, how you found wine and how you kind of got into the wine industry or into the hospitality industry in general. And then I'll just high spot some stuff. So
sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's see. I was born in the Bay Area, and grew up in the Palo Alto area. I loved food and beverage, you know, since, you know, the minute I could, I would say. My mom would take me to her nail appointments and I'd watch the Food Network on the little TV there. And so I decided to go into hospitality management. So I got into NYU and did that as a Bachelor of Science degree there. It was really neat to be in school in New York, like right in the heart of the city. Very uncollege-like, and I grew up super quick. Mm-hmm. And obviously one of the meccas of hospitality, so that was really, really neat for me. And from there, I went to culinary school. So I got into the CIA in Napa. So I lived in St. Helena for a year. I did their ACAP program. So it's their advanced certificate program, since I already had the hospitality studies background, if you will. And right after that, I was like, I do not want to go home, but I do want to go to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So I actually got my first real job off of Craigslist. Wow. With Bon Appetit Management Company as a restaurant supervisor when they opened the new Exploratorium on the water, mm-hmm. Pier 15. And so that was really neat. You know, I got to apply all of my, you know, skills that I had learned. But also, as everyone knows, when you go to college and then actually have a job, hardly any of those skills apply. Yep. So I learned that pretty quickly. But I worked for Clay Reynolds and Loretta Keller at the Exploratorium, and they were wonderful people to work with. I learned so much from both of them. I got my love of beverage from Clay. And we had a little craft cocktail bar in the back restaurant called Sea Glass. And so I went from supervisor to restaurant manager to catering manager to AGM there. So I spent like a solid 4 years there. Unfortunately, Bon Appetit had split from them during that time. Right. But I stayed on with Clay and Loretta for an extra year running that business. We also had an adult Thursday night, which was super fun at the Exploratorium. So we had bars that we built on the floor. Whoa. So we did like beer, wine, and cocktails, and everyone was all excited about, you know, like different types of scientific cocktails and whatever. We would involve like a little bit of dry ice or like some color changing aspects, and so that was super fun for them. We did have wine at the Exploratorium. I was not super into wine at that point, I would say. My parents have always really been into wine, and I think a part of me like didn't want to get into it because it was their thing.
The rebellious nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was like, cocktails are great. Like, I'm going to figure this out. After my time at the Exploratorium, Bon Appetit called me back and they were like, hey, do you want a job? I said, sure. Like, what do you got? So I ran Foundry and Lux, which is in South San Francisco. It's in the Oyster Point Business Park down there. And it's a little lunch cafe. They do breakfast, and then they also have a bar with a happy hour. And so I got to really kind of soup up that craft cocktail bar,
Awesome.
beer, wine, cocktails, and it was like my own little place to run. And so I love doing that. And I was kind of secretly waiting for a job at Oracle Park because I had known Bon Appetit ran that, and I was like, hey, like, I want to do that. And so I had done some good work for them, and I got to really know one of the district managers. And he really fought for me to get into Oracle Park. And so I got a job that following year as the director of in-seat service and bars, if you will, there. So those two departments are really interesting. There I don't really know much about it anymore, but some very like institutionalized managers there. Yeah. Some of them really great, some of them just really in their ways, right? And so it was really neat to be able to, first work with the first union property that I had worked with. And so I learned a lot there.
I'm sure.
But also just the volume, right?
Yeah.
When you get there, you're like, I'm sorry, we're ordering how many cases?
Right.
Of what? So it was a shock, but it was also incredible. So I was under Sandra Filipiak, who is the director of food and beverage for Oracle Park for years and years. She actually transferred over from Candlestick.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, she is amazing. Super great person to go out with if you ever find her. And then I heard that Bon Appetit got the Chase Center contract. And I was curious, right? So I went back to my good old friend Marcus, and I was like, hey, like, do they need beverage help? What's going on? So I sat down with the VP or the VPH that they had just hired. And I was like, I'm really interested in this project. And he's like, cool. Do you want to be the beverage manager? I was like, no, I want to be the beverage director. And he was like, okay.
Wow.
So that's what I did. And I did that for the first 4 years that I was at Chase. I absolutely loved it. We had so many resources. The Lacobs, who own the team and subsequently also the Chase Center, gave us a lot of leeway, especially with our wine program. Nicole Lacob is the wife of Joe Lacob, and she used to be a Krug rep. And so she was very adamant about the wine program being high end in the space. And so when I got there, we actually hired on Debbie Zacharias and subsequently Peter Granoff as well. And so they were our wine consultants for the first year that we were open. And it was incredible working with both of them. I'm still very close with them, and they just have so much wonderful knowledge, and they were able to share so many wonderful contacts for me during that time and also over the years. And they really made kind of the Chase Center wine program what it is. And I was very happy to continue that, after that first year. And being able to work with, more than one or two distributors at an arena for wine is kind of unheard of. And so my purchasing department kind of like hated me. But I felt that it was really important for us to, show not only the season ticket holders, but all the visitors that come through Chase Center, what California and specifically the Bay Area can produce wine-wise. And then, so after that 4 years, our eateries director or concessions director left, and I looked at the org chart and I was like, well, I can do that. And so I went up to my boss and I said, this position is open. Can I move into that? And he was like, well, do you want to leave beverage? And I said, no. So he was like, cool. Do you want to be the director of food and beverage? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so that's what I did for the prior 2 years, or the last 2 years rather, at Chase Center. And it was incredible. Being, running 44 concessions and 24 bars was pretty wild.
Insane.
Yeah, insane. Yeah. It's like our like union list of 1,600 people. Obviously, I had like so much support around me, right? We had our own managers for the different departments, and then we had HR, love you, shout out. Yeah, it was great. Some of my best work friends are still there. And very recently, about 2 months ago, I got the opportunity to actually go into Bon Appetit's B&I accounts. And so now I run, I'm a resident district manager for Intuit, awesome. Their headquarters in Mountain View. And so I've been learning, the lay of the land there. It's been really exciting. It's very much my own program there, and all the departments roll to me, not just food and beverage. Awesome. We have, catering, coffee, break rooms, all that jazz. Yeah. Unfortunately, right now, we do not have any alcohol on campus, but we are applying for a beer and wine license. So hoping that comes through eventually.
You'll get it.
And then, and then I can reach back out to my contacts and start up, a little hobby on the side, happy hour for the Intuit employees. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. What a trajectory, right? I mean, I want to ask, because this is something that, there's so many questions that I have, because I think that the position that you hold now, but more specifically the position that you held at the Chase Center, is such a unique role. Sure. There was only 2 of you in the city, one for Oracle and one for Chase. There's not really anything else that I could think of that runs that many outlets or departments, right? So I'll try to line all the questions up in a good way that's okay. Not overwhelming, because I just want to ask you so many.
I don't get overwhelmed easily.
Yeah, good. Well, I could imagine. Yeah, I'm not 46 departments, so so when you're working for, I guess question 1 is, just so you can help everybody understand, working for Bon Appetit. Bon Appetit is effectively like a consulting company that goes in to manage larger properties, or I guess smaller properties too. Can you expand on what Bon Appetit is as a whole, so that way it's a little clear? Because for me, I just think of it as consulting, but it's much more than that, it feels like.
Bon Appetit is technically a third-party food vendor.
Okay.
And we will get contracted by, different clients. So Intuit is a client, Chase Center is a client, Oracle Park was a client. And we can run, as little or as much of their food and beverage operation as they'd like. A lot of Bon Appetit's accounts are either corporate or actually educational. So they're in a lot of universities, things like that.
That's awesome.
And there are very few public-facing Bon Appetit accounts, but I have been in quite a few of them here in the Bay Area. And so actually like going into a tech account these past 2 months has been my first time in the last 12 years that I've worked for them. So it's been pretty neat.
That's awesome. What does it look like? What did your day look like, at Chase versus what it looks like now? Again, my scope is so limited in the sense of like, I know Bev, you know what I mean? And like, I really have very little experience in the food operation side of things. So like, what does your day look like? How many hours are you putting in? Because it sounds like it's a no sleep kind of a job, but I'm sure that like exactly. I'm sure that with like the structure of the company that there was at least like relief pitchers from time to time,
Yeah. So at Chase, there was no normal day.
Right.
And there's also no normal schedule.
Yeah.
So for that 6 years, there was no like, Tuesday through Saturday or whatever. It was, we worked when we had events,
right? And
we worked some dark days to finish projects, to, follow up with vendors, to schedule employees, all of the things.
Wow.
And then we tried to find days off.
Brutal.
It was interesting, and it kind of really depended who was managing you, if you will.
Sure.
My first 4 years there, the VPH, which we ran through a few at the time, kind of was managing me, and I could somewhat submit my schedule, and I knew what their expectations were to be on site or not. And then the last 2 years, I was able to make my own schedule, but obviously, being of the caliber that the food and beverage program is at Chase Center, it was still very demanding.
It needs to be very hands-on.
Yeah. And so it really needed a person to be there, but also, I felt like I trained my managers very well. And so they were able to do their jobs, up to the level that I wanted them to. And so I was able to get at least 2 days off,
right? Yeah.
That sort of thing. But I was super proud leaving Chase Center. We had just recently in 2024 received the #1 food and beverage in the country for NBA arenas.
Wow.
So that was incredible.
Yeah.
We you can't beat it. It was, I was going out on a high.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It was very, very cool.
Yeah. It's like a walk-off home run.
Yep.
Oh, wait, wrong sport. Sorry. Let's go back. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible to think about, right? Because, while Oracle Park has the baseball and there's some concerts there, I mean, Chase Center has really cemented itself as the large event space of, Northern California. I guess Levi Stadium in the South is also pretty large, but it's definitely the biggest in San Francisco. I'm sure there was just strings of weeks at a time that you probably had to be there at all time between games and concerts.
Definitely. There were definitely some weeks where I didn't get a day off.
Yeah.
And then when we opened the building, I had the pleasure to do that. I think I worked 28 days straight.
Wow.
Definitely between 10 and 12 hours a day. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But we needed to get open. We needed to get product where it needed to be. We needed to figure stuff out. It was, it was wild. I loved it. I'm so glad I had that opportunity. I would never do it again unless somebody paid me a lot of money to do it again.
Well, you have the experience now, If anybody's listening and they're going to open a sports stadium.
Let them know.
Yeah. And then I guess in your role now, without the food and beverage, without the beverage side of the program, maybe explain what it looks like. There's multiple outlets or food stalls, and you said coffee. These are all things that I've never even really thought of. I worked at one resort at one point for 6 months, and I saw there's room service and there's mini bars and there's coffee stands and there's the coffee booth and there's all these things, but how many outlets or how many entities are you kind of working with right now?
Yeah, definitely. So at Intuit, we have roughly 2.5 cafes, 3 coffee bars, and 32 break rooms. So the cafes are 2 large ones. We have 6 stations each. So there's a salad bar, there's an Asian fusion station, Indian, a grill. We have personal pizzas, we have pasta,
So cool.
Lots of different stuff. And then our kind of half cafe right now, it's a Mexican concept, but it's going to switch into Indian, which is actually our most popular concept on campus. And right next to that half cafe is a coffee bar, which we are going to switch in a couple weeks to a chai bar.
Cool.
Very excited. I don't personally drink coffee, so I can't wait to try the 12 chais we're going to have.
Yeah.
So we have different chefs for all the cafes, and they all come from various backgrounds, and that's been really neat to get to know and learn. And then as far as coffee bars, we have 3 full coffee bars, and all of the coffee is complimentary. They are all specialty coffees, or regular, whatever you want. But you order on an app and you're like, hey, I'd love my, vanilla latte. And it pops up in a few minutes.
That's
they
great.
make it. It's pretty wild. And I want to say that the coffee bars were not complimentary prior to COVID, but then Intuit made them complimentary as hey, come on back.
Yeah.
So it's a really great perk for them. And our baristas kill it.
Yeah.
They make between like 900 and 1,200 drinks a day.
Oh my God.
It's wild.
That's more than like
wild.
high volume bars.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
So they are some hardworking people. And then we have our break room department. And so the 31 break rooms across about 11 buildings. So we have lots of different packaged snacks, different, sparkling water equipment. If you don't want to go to one of those coffee bars, we have a little robot coffee dude in the corner that can do it for you. Just kind of little snacks to get you through the day. And then we have our catering department, which is a big deal at Intuit. We have a lot of large events, state of the company. We just had an engineering day, which was actually a week. I don't know how they do it. And so there's lots of catering that needs to be done for those. So that goes through our team. And also the C-suite sits in Mountain View. And so we actually have a whole separate department. It's small. There's like 4 people, but they just cater to the C-suite.
Wow.
It's pretty wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they have some elaborate dinners sometimes. The same, like, very meticulous lunch has to be done, like, on the fly.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
But it's been a fun environment to get to know. And I really love being able to use all the skills that I've learned over my career to help the managers of all the different departments that now roll to me. I've always loved responsibility. I've never really been super overwhelmed by it. For the first 2 years of Chase Center, I kind of had insomnia because of this, that, and the other, and all the union things that were going on. But I don't know, something just clicked and was like, Brooke, this is like, no one's gonna die. Like, this is rocket science. Everything's gonna be fine. And ever since then, I've been like pretty cool with whatever kind of comes my way. I think truly at heart am like a people person and manager. And so I love being able to help my managers do their job well. And ultimately to help the guest, right? It's kind of trickle down effect sort of deal. Because I wouldn't want to come to work if, my manager sucked. So I don't want them to either.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way to think about it. It's, there's just like, it's crazy to think about that many moving pieces. But also you said something that I think is really impactful, and I think it's a really good thing that we should focus on. And, in a way it sounds like it was a little bit of a switch, but kind of that insomnia or that maybe like overdriving anxiety about all the things that could have gone wrong, and like realizing that like nobody's going to die. And I think it's really easy, like when you're working in a restaurant, which is the only thing that I can relate this to, you're working in a restaurant, like something's going bad. You're like, it's a mountain. But then when the day is over, it's very much the molehill. You know what I mean? And it's really easy to kind of like get into that, like, I don't know, that panic mode, if you will, where it seems like it's a bigger deal than it is. But also these places don't sleep. You have staff there at all times, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty wild that like I could go into the garage 24/7.
Yeah.
If and when I needed to, right? When we had like breakfast at Chase Center that started at 6 a.m. and we had to be there at 3 a.m., like there were people there. Yeah. And it was just, it was, And, the other way around too, when I would leave at 1 or 2 in the morning and just, oh, hey, like, bye.
Full team still there. Yeah. What's it like? Maybe this doesn't necessarily apply to Intuit, but what's it like in the off season at a place like Chase? Again, like we mentioned, there's concerts and stuff, but sometimes there's like, like a little week where there's not something, or there's maybe smaller things. And I know you guys were doing a bunch of really cool programs. I wish I could remember what they were, but in the off season, you guys were doing like shows or something. I can't remember what it was.
There was some like outdoor community
Yeah,
engagement
yeah.
that they
It
were
was like
doing
yoga
in
and
Thrive
stuff.
City.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was really neat. They would do farmers markets.
Right,
They'd do like
yes.
bring your kid day. Lots of different stuff. They did movie nights.
Yeah.
So they really liked to activate that Thrive City outside
Mm-hmm,
spot, which I think was great. It really brought, Mission Bay together
Mm-hmm.
and incredible PR for Chase Center.
Yeah.
Like, let's have community events that are free and, really rally around the team and the center itself.
Mm-hmm.
But to your question, on kind of our off weeks or days, that's typically when we'd try and take some vacation if we could. So a lot of people went different places in the summer. And then also just, getting projects done that we hadn't had time to do in the past. Also, Bon Appetit is truly a large company, which is part of Compass Group. And so there were a fair amount of trainings we had to get done, doing those. And that also that off time kind of was a benefit of the job, right? So you weren't super stressed out for 3 or 4 months because there weren't concerts coming in.
Right.
They were going to festivals instead,
Right,
and there
right.
wasn't basketball. And so when you signed up for kind of a grueling 6 to 8 months of basketball, you knew that there was a little bit of an off time to have.
Sounds like a school teacher.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It was somewhat of a seasonal job.
That's
for salaried people, obviously yearly, but
Sure.
all of our hourly people was very seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately and unfortunately, they don't have that luxury anymore. The Valkyries are starting.
Oh.
Yes, next week.
That's awesome.
It's wild.
That's great.
Yes, it's great. I am so excited for the WNBA team that's
Yeah.
about to start. My wife and I have season tickets. I can't wait to go see the WNBA team, but also all of my prior work family there. So very, very excited about that.
That's
but
super cool.
they don't get that summer anymore.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's gonna be. I think they're gonna maybe need to hire some more people.
Yeah. I was gonna say you just have to expand the team. I mean, it sounds like the team was large already, but I mean, there's so many moving pieces involved in the building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what in an event like, maybe this is a weird question, but I'm just thinking about it. You were talking about some of the more established managers at Oracle Park when you went there. In an event when Bon Appetit moves on and a company like Aramark comes in to run the stadium,
Sure.
What does that mean for kind of like the management that had been there? Do they stay for the most part, but they just get a different set of directives, or are there kind of other people that are brought in to replace those people? I'm just kind of,
That's a great question.
I don't know how to wrap my head around it.
No, it's a great question. A little bit of everything. The oncoming company will typically keep as many people as they can. They'll often re-interview salaried managers that are already there to see if they kind of align with the new company's, brand or whatever they, are doing. But they definitely still need to keep core people to be able to continue to run the program.
Got it.
And then, yes, a lot of new directives, mostly financial, which then directly relates to the food and beverage that they serve, right?
Yeah.
So, Oracle Park always comes out with some show stunner new, dishes or drinks every season. And so that won't change, but you'll see small stuff here and there. And obviously all the union staff stays, which is great. Honestly,
awesome.
I learned so much working with local too, and the benefits that they get afford them to live in a place like San Francisco.
Right.
And for an hourly seasonal job, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
And so I am very, pro local too. And, some of those people are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's the closest experience that I have with union is, during the strikes over the holidays at the hotels that happened in last year in 2024. And there was signs, one job should be enough. And I'm like, yeah, one job should be enough.
I know,
right? It's
Yeah.
it seems very oh, why are these people striking? Or, oh, it's loud, or, oh, it's they're, blocking the sidewalk or whatever. But when you think about it in the long run, I'm not saying that the hotels have tons of money to spend, but they could figure out a way to sharpen the budget a little bit, I'm sure, to take care of the workers that are
Absolutely.
there. So
The large corporations that effectively, a union grows in because of this, that, and the other, usually will have that money to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And, there's been case studies about companies that, financially and, with different benefits take care of their employees, less turnover, higher revenue. It's very well known. If you treat your people well, they will treat your business well. And I feel like we are starting to forget that as a country. So I, as a manager of not necessarily 1,600 people anymore, but, 150, I feel like I can make a little piece of that, good for those people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other questions that I had for you that I was really fascinated in is kind of, so firstly, I want to applaud your ability to work with as many distributors as you did, because it's not only working with the distributors, but in a way, with certain companies that are brokerages, you're working with the winery through the broker. So yes, it's a different distributor, but in a way you're setting up almost multiple accounts with individual wineries, which, as you mentioned, the accounting team probably got a little frustrated with from time to time.
Just a little.
So it was a lot of work on your part, a lot of work on their part, but in a way, like, you guys were able to champion so many small wineries. And I just think that's so important, because one of the things we talk a lot about on the podcast is kind of like conscious consumption. It's like, yeah, you could go to the sports stadium and you could drink Coors Light or whatever. My dad drank a lot of Coors Light, but you could also support a local brewery, right? But, and I also inversely understand the inherent need for stable flow of product, right? Like, you can't take a winery on that only makes 500 cases if you're going to go through 800 cases, right? It doesn't make sense. It creates a lot of logistical issues. So first of all, thank you for supporting a lot of the cool local wineries and all that.
I thought it was cool too.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think a lot of people have and do, and that's one of many facets of Bon Appetit is supporting small and local. And so to be able to do that on a larger scale, it doesn't really make sense in your brain, but we were able to do it.
Yeah.
And that was really, really cool for us.
Yeah. Again, it could have been so easy to just like you said earlier, lock in with 2 distributors, 2 of the big guys or 3 of the big guys, the 3 biggest, and to just say, like, this is what we're ordering. We're ordering, wine that never goes out of vintage, never goes out of stock, and that tastes consistent year after year, because that's just going to be the easiest thing. It creates less logistical issues, because decided to go against the grain, which I think is really important to note, because it didn't make your job any easier.
No,
let's say.
It did not, but it did make it more fun.
Yeah, exactly. So within that question, I kind of wanted to talk about, like, you're talking about, the owner's partner being a Krug rep for a while, or Krug ambassador or whatever for a while, and creating kind of this like Lux wine, I don't want to call it a scene, Lux wine environment. What was it like being able to pick out some of the wines for kind of like the boxes and kind of like the more reserved seating areas? I mean, you had kind of like this incredible range that you could have purchased from. I mean,
it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was very
good.
cool.
That's it. The time bow on it. It was awesome. Yeah.
I had this spreadsheet. I love a list. And it was, what is the wholesale range that we need for, our house wine, for the wine that goes into the theater boxes, for the wine that goes in the suites, for the wine that goes in the courtside lounges, and they were all different. And some people look at me and be like, why do we have like 100 bottles of wine like running around this arena? This is wild. And I'm like, because it's cool. And there's people that appreciate it. And like, I'm here to do that work. It was always something that differentiated us, and it was something that I could also kind of get away with for a long time. There's a fair amount of sponsorship in the arena world, Yes, those are marketing agreements, but we also, pour a fair amount of their products. And so to have limited sponsorship in the wine category for most of the years that I worked there, we were able to, have a lot of fun and really highlight some great producers. And I met a whole bunch of great people. I learned a ton myself. And I feel like I educated a lot of people on wine, which is kind of wild to me because, at like 16 or 18, sitting at my parents' table and being like, everything tastes like grapes, just sitting here. It's been quite the run.
Certainly. What, to being like, I'm going to get into the cocktail scene. Wine's kind of lame. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not that you said wine's lame, but it's kind of that's my parents' drink. You know what I mean?
Sure.
What were some of the favorite wines that you had the opportunity to work with kind of maybe throughout the program, not just exclusively the higher end stuff, but I know you did a lot with Vineyard 29. That one touches close to home because obviously Bianca represented that winery for a long time.
Yeah. Vineyard 29, the Crew 29 was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Every vintage, really just hit that mark.
Yeah.
And we were able to serve that in our JP Morgan Club for years. Mm-hmm. The guests loved it. We loved it. We were able to create, great rapport with the winemaker as well. Mm-hmm. And that was great. I also, a couple of our house wines were really neat. We were able to pour Bloodroot for a long time. Lioco. We got Catherine Goldschmidt in there. Wow. And those were like our higher volume. I mean, some of the more reserved ones, which, I felt very honored to be able to, have on our list, the Promontories, the Harlans, the, Screaming Eagle, and all of the ones that you might see but never actually drank.
Right.
It was interesting because everyone wanted to be at Chase Center,
sure.
right? But also we had or have an inclusive beverage program for basketball. Mm-hmm. So there's certain wines that are included in everyone's package, and then there's wines that are on a list. Mm. And so purchasing those different ones, choosing, what stayed, what went every year. That was a big process for us. It was like, oh, this one's moving. Oh, this one's like not, but I like it. And,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. It was so many different people. And, at Chase Center, we actually got into a fair amount of canned wine. So operationally, it was great for us in our eatery locations, so all the concession stands to have cans of wine. At first, there were not a lot of good canned wine back in 2019. Yeah. It's come quite a long way. We've partnered with Weston Wilder, Maker Wines, oh my gosh, the Rosé, Une Femme.
Oh yeah.
So some great producers, and local, which was really important to us. Mm-hmm. So quality, locality, and they were able to meet the quantity as well. So
that's the big asterisk at the bottom, right? It's like, yeah, I can't run out mid-season. It's an issue.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they were so jazzed to be there that they would make sure that, we were taken care of with whatever we needed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What did you guys ever have? Like, you hear about like when somebody wins a game and they want to celebrate, the players get out and they drink some crazy stuff. Did the players get to partake in your program, or did they kind of bring their own stuff, or like, did your role ever interact with the players in that way?
Not often.
Okay.
Yeah. Often the wine that you would see the players have, especially on TV and things like that, would be part of the sponsorship.
Okay.
Chase Center was partners with Moet and Chandon for quite some time. So the amount of Moet that we went through would blow your mind. And yeah, so that was pretty neat. But all the basketball players have their own preferences. A lot of them drink tequila. They're basketball players at heart, but like also celebrities that want to be cool.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was because when you were saying like Bond and Promontory and stuff like that, I was like thinking about wine enthusiasts every whatever, or Wine Spectator will release an article once a year talking about this celebrity athlete is drinking these crazy things, and you ask yourself like, where do they get them? Do they just go to restaurants and buy them, or so that's what I was curious of, if there was like a reserve list in the locker room, like if you guys win, here you go, you can buy these.
They don't need to know anyone. Right. They can just say, hey, I heard this wine was really good.
Yeah.
And someone will be like, no problem.
Yeah.
On it.
So cool.
Yeah. It's nuts. I had no idea how much money there was in basketball
until
I started working there.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And it affords them a very unique lifestyle. Depending on who you are and, on the team, off the team, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, additionally, with the Oracle Park and the development of the Mission Rock neighborhood in Mission Bay, those structures that they're putting there, and the great little park and the beach, and putting a bunch of restaurants down there, and that's all partnership with the Giants. And from what I understand, some of the Giants players get shares in those things. And I'm like,
oh, interesting.
That's really cool. I think that's how I understand it. And, it's just really cool to think of a way for them to kind of holistically help set them up for the future. Because sometimes, athletes have shorter careers than other athletes, and that money doesn't always go the same way all the time. But yeah, it's that's fascinating, because again, you have such a unique role that I'm like, I don't even understand 90% of the things that you would deal with on a regular basis. So
I do want to bring one thing up that I forgot to mention. So Chase Center does have a vintner pouring program that every home basketball game we bring in a different vintner, and they pour their wine for our courtside lounges. And so we actually get either a representative from the winery or the winemaker themselves, or maybe some interns, anyone who they really want to send with some of their wine. And they get to pour it for some of our most VIP guests. And that was kind of how I got to really have those personal relationships with those different wineries. And it was such a cool activation for our guests. I mean, like, think about, purchasing a really expensive ticket, but then like popping in there and, seeing Peter Michael like pouring wine, and you're like, I'm sorry, what is this?
Yeah.
And 90% of the people aren't going to know what Peter Michael wine is, but 10% are going to be like, what?
This is baller.
Happening? Yeah. So yeah, that is a really cool program, and that is continuing as well. Debbie was able to initially set that up, and I was able to add to it with different producers over the years, and that was a really, really neat thing that we got to implement there.
Is that one of the ones that Jeff Smith did recently? Yeah, that's right. Jeff Smith from Hourglass. Now it's forever stuck in my head. I mean, I know Jeff Smith's with Hourglass, but when I think about Hourglass, I think about this episode I did with Dan Petrosky. We were talking about lesser known varieties, and we were talking about this Hourglass effect that's happening with, there was a lot of varieties, and then people started only making the ones that there was money for, but now we're going into the bottom of the Hourglass. Well, there'll be more.
That's interesting.
My little tangent.
I love it.
No, I think that's really important because, again, it kind of echoes to the consciousness of everything about it, right? It's like giving people a spotlight and giving people an opportunity to, be there, whether it be, Jeff Smith from Hourglass, who's partnered with a very small broker, to, people that are partnered with maybe the Moet Chandons or LVMHs or whatever, It gives kind of level ground for people to stand on, which I think is really cool. And it's not only is it great for, the wineries, but it's great for the consumers. It allows them the opportunity to be exposed to these cool wineries and cool brands that they wouldn't normally have had the chance. I mean, how often do you get to taste Peter Michael? I've been in the wine industry for a long time, and I've tasted Peter Michael maybe a few times.
Also same handful.
Yeah. And I sold it at Chambers for 3 years. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. People are like, awesome, and I would sell it. But obviously, it's good. But
the opportunity that this job afforded me was exponential.
Yeah.
You know, just people wanting the exposure of being in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I feel like I had a really big hand in being fair.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we would flip our wines every year. You know, I would say we'd maybe flip over 60 to 70% of all the SKUs, which is pretty wild with over 100 SKUs in this like huge building. But I thought that was important. I thought it, you know, especially with the inclusive wines in the clubs or in the suites, you know, you didn't want those suite holders to see the same thing the next year.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also wanted to be able to give that large stage to different people, right? So that was super fun.
I think that's awesome. I that's, again, it's just, I think it really speaks a lot to a level of integrity when, again, you're willing to create more complexity in an already complex job to go out of your way to do something like that. So I think it's so cool because it'd be so easy. I mean, when I was managing at Ozumo, you know, which is significantly smaller, but it was one of the largest restaurants and maybe I don't even want to say highest grossing, but one of the highest cover restaurants that I ever worked at. I was like, I'm not changing my by the glass until like every 6 months. And then it would go for like a year and I would go like, fine, I guess I need to change it, you know? But it was just like, I just don't have time to do that stuff.
You're like,
so.
It's working, don't break it.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless they'd run out and I'd be like, oh shit, you know?
This vintage tastes like the next, I swear.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, it's the same, but it's going up $3. And you're like, oh,
great, thanks.
Not going to work quite as well.
How about for me?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was going through significantly less than you were, so maybe for Brooke it would have been, but not for Chris.
If you purchase it by the pallet, Chris, you can chat.
Exactly. So to kind of go back a little bit further, one of the notes that I wrote here was on the Exploratorium, and I wanted to kind of ask a little bit more, like the adult night thing. Is that something that's still going on? And it reminds me a little bit of like the Museum of Science or whatever in Golden Gate Park. Yeah. They do something similar, right?
Yep. Pretty much the same thing.
That's so cool.
Museum.
Yeah. That's so cool. Oh, except their things aren't scientific, right?
That's true.
I think maybe they name them after the animals or something. Like, I wonder what an albino alligator drink would be.
Oh man, some type of like milk punch or White Russian.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, I was thinking of something that's sneaky but has a bite.
Oh yeah, definitely a milk punch.
Yeah.
Like a clarified one, so you don't see it coming.
Yeah, like his eyes, they're clear.
Yeah, that was a great program. I mean, that was the first time that I had done beverage catering, if you will.
Okay.
So, you know, setting up 5 or 6 different bars on the floor, making sure they had all the components they needed to make this, that, and the other. You know, and I was working with some pretty seasoned catering people who've been around, and that was really neat to get to know them. And, you know, it was also, the Exploratorium job was mostly during the day because those were the museum hours, but Thursday night was the night we were open. And that's kind of how I made one of my best friends too, was they were the catering manager and I was the restaurant manager.
That's awesome.
And so after Thursday night wrapped up and we'd do our counts and all that stuff, and we still counted cash.
Way back.
And we'd go to a different bar every Thursday night.
That's
and
so cool.
That was really neat, being able to kind of explore the city that way.
Yeah.
You know, on just a Thursday night.
Yeah.
It was neat.
Speaking on that, you know, exploring San Francisco, you know, being from the Bay Area, do you feel like, I mean, obviously it's significantly different than it was, right? But you've probably seen the ebb and flow of San Francisco a lot more than I mean, me, I've moved here in 2018. How do you feel like, you know, things have changed in the Bay Area? I mean, obviously there's challenges, but it seems like there's a lot of cool stuff happening. I mean, let's go back to Mission Bay and all the amazing development that's gone on over there, and you know, all the amazing development that's going on in the South. But it's kind of been pretty wild to watch the city over this many years.
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, so as a kid, I grew up in Half Moon Bay and Palo Alto, and I always thought of San Francisco as like the shining star city. Like, oh, that's where the zoo was.
Yeah.
Love zoo. And
Only if they had adult nights. I would love the zoo more.
Like that's the cool place, right? And so when I went to college in New York, I was a very much like I turned into a very city person, and then coming back to Napa Valley for culinary school was quite the culture shock for me.
Sure.
I would go down to San Francisco every weekend I could, you know, to go to bars, to dance, to date, to, you know, do whatever I couldn't do up in St. Helena, you know, the one bar town. So it was really thriving at that time, I think. And then, you know, I lived in the city for 8 years, and I loved it. As you know, living here in my 20s was incredible. I thought the city was really thriving. You know, there was a fair amount of, you know, money everywhere, with tech being, you know, what it was. You know, every single neighborhood had their thing. And downtown was doing pretty well. And this, that, and the other, COVID hit. Me and my partner were living roughly downtown in the Tender Knob, if you will. And, you know, we'd take those daily walks down to downtown, and it being a ghost town every day was nuts.
Weird.
So weird.
Yeah.
So weird. And it just never recovered in the same way that I think the small, you know, neighborhoods within San Francisco have. I think, unfortunately, because downtown is so driven by, you know, that large industry and different, you know, businesses being there and having people go to work and not be remote, and it's been too slow, I think, to come back. But all of the other neighborhoods, I think, have really bounced back. You know, we're seeing lots of new restaurant openings and bar openings, especially in 2023, 2024. And, you know, just the different cultures that you're seeing, they're just as good, you know, as they were before the pandemic, I would say. And, you know, I think we're seeing a different kind of type of person wanting to come to San Francisco, not just the, you know, tech enthusiasts and things.
Right.
Maybe some people who are into the culture aspect of it. And I'm hopeful that it continues that way. I love the city very much, not just because I grew up here. You know, I feel safe here, and I'm able to be whoever I would like to be in this space. And it's gorgeous. It's very expensive, but totally worth it. You know, I could live anywhere else and, you know, pay half for my mortgage, but I want to live here. Right. Yeah. And it's important to me.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I think it's well said. And I mean, yeah, the neighborhoods are blossoming, and I think it's really cool. I mean, it's still sad to go downtown sometimes. And I remember pre-pandemic, I used to get on the J, and I used to get off at Embarcadero, and I used to walk to Boulevard. And I remember getting off in the morning on the train, and there's people everywhere. Like, it's hard to walk on the sidewalk. There was so many people. And then when I first started taking the J again after the pandemic, and I was working at Ozumo, half a block over, you know, I'd get on the J and I'd ride down and I'd get off, and there was nobody. And it was just such a weird, like, pivot, you know? And I feel like it's getting a little busier down there. But it's so cool to see the neighborhoods flourishing the way they are, you know. Polk Street, Fillmore in California, what's that?
Like Diviz area.
Yeah. Like that whole area is really coming together, you know. Valencia has always been cool, and we live like a few blocks from Valencia. So
agreed. It has always been cool and will always be cool.
But it's one of those things that, you know, like when it's close to the house, you don't go to it because you're so close to the house, you just go home. So sometimes on the weekends, like we'll walk Emory and we walk down Valencia. We're like, we should really come here more. And then we went to Hayes Valley yesterday, and we, like, you know, we're shopping, and I was just like, wow, there's so many cool stores. There's so many restaurants, and there's so much stuff going on over here. And it was so busy.
Yeah.
So busy.
That's awesome.
And it's just really great to see that, I think. So let's hope for downtown, and let's.
Yep. I think it's coming back. Honestly,
Yeah.
like, for what it's worth, I am very hopeful for this new mayor.
Yeah.
I've seen some great things in the past few months.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I don't want to jinx it. It can only go up from here. You know what I mean? Like, no, I
sure hope
I think
so.
that it takes a lot of concerted effort for it to go up, and it feels like the concerted effort is being put forward. So
Agreed.
fingers crossed. But let's celebrate the neighborhoods exploding. Let's
Yes.
celebrate Mission Bay. The development in Mission Bay has been incredible over the last 6 or 7 years, and there's even more residential complexes going up over there. So it's very cool to see.
Absolutely.
So you're in the East Bay now.
I am.
So we should probably, we can have like an air of grievance of traffic in the Bay Area. And it's gotten, Bianca and I were always like, oh, we wish it was busier. We wish it was busier. And now we're driving and we're like, why are there so many people on the road,
You wished it was busy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Now I have someone to blame.
Yeah, exactly. How do you find I'm sure the drive's challenging to make it from the East Bay to the peninsula. Any shortcuts, any tricks, any tips?
I wish, man. I had my shortcuts when driving from Oakland to Chase Center.
Mm-hmm.
Might have had an illegal turn or a handful or whatever.
You know what?
But also, you can strategically
Statute of limitations.
right?
Nobody's listening. Yeah.
You can strategically choose your lanes when going across the bridge.
Yeah.
But going down to Mountain View from Oakland.
Yeah.
So I will tell you the one trick, which I do every day because it's also part of my job.
Mm-hmm.
I serve breakfast and lunch.
Oh.
I have to be there. At
You get there
6
earlier.
a.m., Chris.
Oh. But the
Yes.
drive is an hour instead of 2, probably.
The drive is 46 minutes.
Whoa, really?
Straight shot.
Wow.
I know. But I wake up at 4:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
which I have decided is not even the morning. It should really be called 4:30 at night.
Right.
I think anything
Yeah.
before 5 a.m. is still the nighttime. As you can tell, I have not accepted this.
Yeah.
But I am trying. I am trying so hard.
But you're hanging on. Look at it.
I know.
It's
I know.
You're doing great.
I know. I'm adulting pretty
Yeah.
hard today.
Yeah.
Even without having a child. But it's so the morning is fine. Straight shot, 45 minutes. But regardless of what time I leave, it's always an hour and a half back.
Yeah.
So thank God for podcasts.
Yeah. Woo.
Listen. And music and calling friends and family, and also just kind of the topic of acceptance. I had a babysitter when I was very young who taught me, the value of acceptance. And I got this really great job opportunity. Unfortunately, it happened to be a little bit further away than I wanted. But it was the next step in my career, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know that it was this specific job, but nothing's ever going to be perfect. And the title was there, the money was there, the next step in my career was there, and it doesn't hurt that it's right across the street from my parents.
That's great.
They still live down there, so I see them a little more. But I will say that it's funny that you pick the drive out because that is like my one little sore spot still.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm trying, and I love our house in Oakland. We have a great little spot. My partner and my 2 dogs and I, we live right next to, in the Lakeshore area.
That's awesome.
This little dog run where we can let them off leash.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I cannot live anywhere where there isn't a dog run where I can, where I can't let them off leash.
Yeah.
So, it would be very tough to move. So it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, again, if it's worth it, it makes sense. I remember I grew up in Running Springs, a small mountain town by Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead. My parents used to drive an hour and a half to work, an hour and a half home every day. And I just remember growing up and going I'm never going to do that. And now I'm in outside sales and I'm in my car all the
All
time,
day.
you know. I got to get across town. It's 40 minutes to get from the Sunset to downtown sometimes.
What do you
know?
do?
Oh, podcast calls.
Podcasts. All
Calls,
right.
I think,
Yeah.
you know, I think you bring up something well, and it's something really well here. It's like there's time to do that. And to me, like, that's one of the things that I struggled with a lot working in the restaurant industry was like reaching out to my friends, reaching out to my family. But now I get in the car and I like plug in the address and I'm like, an hour? Who am I going to call today? You know, and I just start calling people and catching up with them. And it's nice. It's a way to occupy the time, but also to remember to like keep the community alive. You know, you have to like keep your friendships going. And yes, we all have those evergreen friends that you could see once every 5 years and it's like nothing changed, but it's always good to catch up with people, I think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I totally feel like I'm turning into my parents because my stepdad would always call people in the car when we were in the car for longer than like 20 minutes. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
And now I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's
circle
funny.
of life.
Circle of life. It is. Yeah. One more thing that you mentioned that I really like and it really resonated with me was growing up and watching the Food Network. You know, like a lot of times people talk about like TV for kids and they're like, it's bad and it's not, you know, it distracts them or whatever. But my dad watched Food Network all the time. And I'm not really a good cook, but I have a lot of like ideas on it. And I really enjoy dining and I really enjoy eating. And I think a lot of that comes from that. I mean, Food Network was such an integral part to my life as a kid. And I always think that it's interesting. It's never anything I've ever talked about on the podcast before is like, it should be like one of the qualifiers. Did you grow up watching Food Network in your household?
Yes.
Yes. I think that's so cool. And I think it's a way that like, you know, the food and the hospitality industry didn't necessarily embed itself in you, but that's kind of a way that like it opened your mind to that. And I think that's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes me think about my childhood and I'm like, I'm going to make my daughter watch Food Network. No, right? I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Some type of children's cooking
yeah,
show.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I am a TV lover. I always have been. I never read as much as my mom wanted me to. Mm-hmm. Sorry. And, you know, just like visual arts were always kind of the thing that I was drawn to. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother was a great cook and my great-great-grandfather was an executive chef in Chicago.
Wow.
And so it somewhat runs in the genes.
That's awesome.
And my mom actually did not originally want me to go into the hospitality industry because it's a struggle. It is. And, you know,
it's weekends, it's holidays. Oh, yeah.
And I got told all of this and apparently did not listen. So,
and not only that, but you also chose places that have incredible schedules. You know?
Oh yeah, so great. But you know what? During my 6 years at Chase Center, I did get someone to marry me.
There you go. Hey,
it's possible.
You know what? That's a sign.
It's a sign. It's a sign that it can work.
It can work. Yeah.
But yeah, no. Still love the Food Network. I mean, I think food in general just brings people together, and being able to make good food or fun food. And, you know, I love entertaining with my friends and meeting new people. And it really is another type of language, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had Peter Andrews on from Culture Wine Co. and he said something like, that's his love language, or like, that's like, and it just hit me. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's so funny. I invite my friends over and I'm like, again, I'm not like a great cook. I like to cook, but I'm not a great cook. But I invite my friends over and I'm like, oh, you guys should come over. Let's all hang out. And then, you know, Bianca and I end up like roasting ducks and like cooking all these sides. And it's just like,
fancy.
It's like kind of stressful. And then everybody gets there and we all have fun. And then it's like, okay, it's worth it, you know?
That's awesome.
But yeah, that act of cooking, I think is just so like, it's such a loving thing and it does bring people together so well. That and wine, yes. I've always thought are like really great way to kind of like bond people.
Absolutely.
You know? Speaking on wine, we should probably, you know, get to this point. What do you think? Do you enjoy this wine? Are you enjoying having a glass?
I do enjoy this wine. I think it's pretty bright. It's got a nice medium structure. Mm-hmm. You know, crushable, if you will. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I enjoy whatever it may be, Chris.
Whatever it may be.
Yes.
Obviously it's a white wine. I was going to say, well, I don't want to give away any tips. But I'm sitting here and I always get into this room and it's warm in this room for me. So I don't know if it's warm for you as well, but I find myself gravitating towards white wines. And then I was like, what's fun and high acid that we can drink and it's going to like give me energy, you know? So I went with just a little bottle of Sancerre.
Nice.
Tomato Présimile from Manbray is just kind of their like riff on the original town's name. But
well, it's delicious.
thanks. I'm glad that you like it. Yeah. It was I called Bianca and I was like, what do I pour for Brooke? Like, you know her better than I know her.
Aww.
And she was like, just pour something fun that you like. And I was like, So
I'm not very particular.
That's fine. I was, in my head, I was like, I need to find like a small California producer because I know that's what she liked and what she focused on. And then Bianca was like, yeah, but she drank a lot of those. And I was like, oh, that's a good point, So try to, always trying to, I overthink everything. That's just what I
appreciate it. You did very well. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So we're to the point now where I'll ask you if you have any kind of words of wisdom, any advice, or I guess I should ask, is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else we didn't cover that you think you want to cover?
I don't think so. We went over quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was good.
Good. Yeah. So any tips, any words of advice, any statements you'd like to make to any of the listeners?
Yeah. I would say if you're thinking about getting into the hospitality industry, try it first if you can. It's not for everyone. You have to have a certain type of personality to stay in it. There's a lot of people who get into it, and to actually stay, you have to be very flexible, and you have to really love a certain aspect of it, regardless of if it's food or wine or, service. You have to be a little bit obsessive about one of those things, or else it's not really going to work. But I will say it's so incredibly rewarding and fun. Everyone's like, oh, you get to have free food every day and free beverages. And it's like, yeah, I do. And that is cool. It is also a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a long time to get to where I am today. But, striving and with any career, trying to do your best. And I think is kind of just key. And it is a very fun career. So if you're looking to go into it, I would suggest trying it.
Try it first. Try it before you buy it.
Try it before you buy it. I don't know how you can do that with a career, but
yeah, well,
I don't know.
Without downplaying, the hospitality industry, it's to start off as a server, to start off as a busboy, really doesn't require a lot. You don't need degrees or anything like that. You can just give it a shot, and a lot of people go to college and do it on the side too. But yeah, I think that's really well said, and it's the hospitality industry is so rewarding, and there's free food, there's cool wine, but like sometimes making somebody's day and like seeing the joy on their face when they have a great experience is like, I love that.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And somewhat of like, I love the instant gratification of it as well.
Yep.
Right? Like I don't have to work on projects for weeks for them to like be done and I can see the result. Like I can serve someone a cocktail that I make in 30 seconds. They're like, this is awesome. Yeah. And you're like, or serve someone a dish or, even reply to maybe a negative comment that we got. Yeah. And they're like, thank you so much for being genuine and like following up on my feedback. That's most of the time what people want. They just want to be heard. And so to be able to do that with food and beverage is also really cool. Yeah.
I love it. Cool. All right.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah, I had a blast. Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.